Ayoli. What's happening, nation? CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed above or directly at WiseTake.com if you're looking to take a DFS game to the next level. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Please subscribe. Hit the notifications bell. Don't miss out on any of the free content we put out. We are back with the free stuff. That's right. That's right. Made some adjustments to the schedule. Obviously, we're really busy this time with NBA, MLB, all these kind of things, but I didn't want to leave the YouTube crowd hanging. You know what I'm saying? I think it was right. I felt like we had to find a way to stay in touch, right, with our YouTube people out there. So that's exactly what we're here to do. I'm excited. I made this little quick sheet for us to reference as we go through these pitchers, and on this show, what we're going to do is break down the pitchers. Now, inversely, we're going to talk about the good pitchers, talk about the bad pitchers. So we will cover some of the offenses that we like, some of the offenses we want to attack. Obviously, you can check us out at WiseTake.com if you're looking for more DFS content. We've got our projections are available over there for download. The cheat sheets we use, Paulie D's Dirt Sheet, which is pretty awesome. I write a Core Plays article over there where I kind of do a little breakdown for cash tournaments, all that stuff. So if this isn't enough for you, go check it out there. We have day passes available if you want to try it out. We have a Slack chat. I'm going to try to get a little more involved with the Slack, incorporate it more, and, look into Discord, look into different things that we can do to improve our product as we always do. But most importantly, I want to improve the YouTube product. So I did ask for feedback on the YouTube channel, on the Twitter, on my Twitter, and I got a few interesting answers, some that I will not do and some that I'll consider. So any feedback is always greatly appreciated, because at the end of the day, trying to do what we got to do to make y'all happy and to provide some quality content out there. All right. That being said, we got some pitchers to discuss. Now, if you notice with this sheet, you'll see the left-hand side stays still, so we always know what team they play for, what hand they are, and the rest of it kind of interchanged so that we can load more in there. We've got stats, batted ball data. This is all for 2020, so we will be updating this once we get a larger sample for 2021. Initially, I had 2021 included, but it was kind of really skewing the numbers, so I decided to just go off of last year's numbers to be safe. We don't have any stats for Arihara, right? So we'll keep that in mind when we get up to him. I got another source that I can use for this year's data, again, small samples, because that's all we really have to work with a player like him. So it is what it is, if you will. Let me just check one thing real quick. One thing right quick. All right, we'll go ahead and do the dirty. Yeah. Do the dirty. Yeah. All right, so we're going to start off with Mr. Plesac, right? We'll start off with him. I think he'll be somewhat popular. ERA is 2.28, which is the lowest on the slate, which I think, outside of TJ Zeuch, who didn't have much of a sample. We'll talk about him separately. He's not my favorite pitcher on the slate. The strikeout rate, 27.7%, is impressive. A really low BABIP makes me a little nervous, right? With that number being so low, it tells us that maybe he was a little lucky. The hard contact metrics look good. I think in cash games, he's fine. And what we have to consider is it's not just a 3.5 xFIP is respectable. 3.41 Sierra is definitely respectable. So I'm not by any means trying to downplay the dude. I'm just thinking tournaments, big picture shit, and whatnot. But I think that on DraftKings, he's more viable because you need two pitchers. And I think that he's relatively safe for cash games, right? We've got a Tigers team that last year had a 303 WOBA and a 152 ISO with a 27% K rate. So these factors definitely elevate him, right? On a projection level, we don't have him necessarily projecting the highest, but we still have a pretty decent projection for him. 8.6 on FanDuel, you're getting a better price. He's actually cheaper than McCullers over there. But, of course, on DraftKings at 9.6, he is the most expensive of the bunch, which is kind of interesting. So I think if you're playing Plesac, not to say you're not playing him, but I think you're also kind of factoring in the opponent in Detroit. Now, Detroit's been a little bit different this year. They got a little bit of a different team. They got guys like Mazzara. They made a couple improvements here or there, if you want to call it that. But I'm fine with Plesac. I think he's makes sense in cash games, and I'll incorporate him more on DraftKings in the SP2, or where you have to roster two pitchers, not to call him an SP2. He's got SP1 numbers. McCullers, we didn't see a ton of him over the last couple of years. He's been dealing with injuries. It's the usual with him. Gives up a ton of hard contact, 38.4, one of the highest on the slate. But he also has a massive ground ball rate, which has been good for him. 3.93 ERA, but his xFIP is 3.68. Sierra, 2.95, a little bit more where we thought he'd be. He does have a matchup against Oakland, who has been a little more strikeout heavy. Years past, they weren't exactly a team I love to attack, but to be honest, this new Oakland team, it is what it is, and looks like the game's in Houston. But I'm fine with McCullers for tournaments. We'll have to watch for any kind of limitation just because it's early in the season, and he's somebody that's been prone to injuries. He's projecting really well for us on DraftKings. I want to look into that and see why that is, and see if I have to make any adjustment. But I think he's fine for tournaments. I got no issues with McCullers. Zach Wheeler's coming off of an awesome game against Atlanta, just destroyed them. Did really well. He had a 2.92 ERA. His strikeout rate was way down. One of the numbers that I'm realizing now I don't have on here that I need to incorporate is swinging strike. So I'll be sure to get that added to the sheet hopefully before we do the next show. But I do have the data that I can pull up for it just so we can go over it. 11.4% incorporating this year. Right, last year alone it was 10.8%, so it's not like massively high, but it feels like it should be higher, or it feels like based off that number his strikeout rate should have been higher, and it's a little weird that it was so low. Like it definitely was with the Mets. It was a little higher. It was just kind of weird. The good news is his ground ball rate was good. His hard contact rate was low, and that's something he consistently did. So it could have been kind of fluky. I don't know. The issue, of course, is Atlanta last year was a really good offense. You can see the opponent WOBA of 355, opponent ISO 215, one of the highest on the slate, the highest in terms of ISO. But Atlanta did strike out last year more than they used to, right? They used to never really strike out. They struck out a lot more last year than they had in the past. So I think Wheeler makes sense to take some shots on in tournaments, but Musgrove's got to be like everyone's favorite pitcher, right? Like I would think Musgrove is like everyone's favorite. Now, we have some factors. The Texas Rangers ballpark has been their new park, Globe Life Field, opposed to Globe Life Park, has been one of the most pitcher-friendly parks in the game when the roof is closed. When the roof is open, the dynamic changes. It gets a little windy at times. The weather is typically hot and humid, warm and humid, whatever you want to call it. At this point in the season, I think they're still having like 85 degrees or whatever. So it makes a difference. However, Musgrove's numbers were fucking really good last year. Really good. And you can see a 3.86 ERA, but a 3.19 xFIP, the best on the slate. 3.5 Sierra, the second best Sierra outside of Plesac. So again, I know I'm not trying to downplay Plesac. I just personally like Musgrove a little bit better, especially for tournaments. The Rangers last year, one of the worst offenses in the game, 283 WOBA, 147 ISO. They've gotten off to a much better start so far this year, and they have a lot of lefties, which is something we have to consider. As far as his splits go, he was fairly neutral. Strikeout rate, a little bit higher to righties. His walk rate, a little bit higher to lefties. But it was fairly neutral. And if you look at the strikeout rates, if we look at the strikeout rates for this projected lineup that we have currently, there are guys who don't really strike out a ton. Nick Solak last year, 17.7% K rate against righties. Heim only had a 32 plate appearance sample against righties, but he had a 9.4% strikeout rate. And then Kenner Falafel, who's been leading off, 15.2%. But outside of that, every other player in between them, massive strikeout rates. David Dahl, 26.6. Gallo, 30.8. Nate Lau, 26.7. Ronald Guzman, 28.4. Culberson, 66. Okay, this is a small sample. We'll ignore him. But Tavares, 32.6. So the strikeout upside is definitely there. And FanDuel, in my opinion, kind of got it right. They priced him. Well, I don't want to say fully because I don't think Wheeler should have been the most expensive pitcher on the slate, especially as an underdog. I think they priced Plesac a little too low. But they did price Musgrove to the point where I felt like he should have been. And we have him projected as one of the best pitchers, I'll say. So I do like Musgrove a lot. I think that this stuff he's been showing is real. Last year, he had a 14.3% swinging strike rate. Now, again, we're talking about last year, there was, sample sizes and all that good shit. So don't want to overreact. But with the little bit that we did see of him this year, looked pretty good, right? Arizona, 3 hits, 8 strikeouts in just 6 innings. Looked pretty good. So I like Musgrove the most at the moment for tournaments. We'll get into the cash game conversation in my article, but I like Musgrove. I do. And on DraftKings, I think at 8,500, we're kind of getting the deal for the numbers he's put up. Now, you put that in combination with Plesac, you're spending a lot of money. But we have a couple guys to consider, such as Mr. Charlie Morton over here. Mr. Morton had a 4.74 ERA, 4.01 xFIP, 3.97 Sierra. So it's good to see the xFIP and the Sierra are lower than the ERA. Looks like he was a little unlucky, right? This number 355, the league average is typically around 300. So if a player's number, if the number is higher than that, that's typically a result of bad luck. If it's lower than that, it's typically a result of better luck, right? So Plesac, one of the more luckier pitchers last season. Whereas, and it's not an exact metric, right? Like, we try to look at that as a corrective stat, so to speak, just to kind of see where they should go towards the average. And remember, last year was a condensed season, so the season didn't play out as much as it normally would have. But again, we'll update these numbers once we get more data for this year. But yeah, I mean, the hard contact rate was still decent, under 30%. Mediocre ground ball to fly ball ratios, right? Nothing crazy. He is the favorite, though. He is actually the favorite, and I think you can make a strong case for him to be one of your cash game SP2s on DraftKings, just simply for the savings. And on FanDuel, you're still saving money. Now, he didn't fare so well against Philly. 5 innings, 6 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 3 earned runs in his first start. He's going to get another crack at it. This time he's at home. Last time he was on the road. So I'm interested, and I think that a lot of people will be because of the savings. Now, we don't have cores on this slate, so that's something to consider, right? But if we look at Mr. Morton, and we look at the 24.7% K rate he had, if we take a look a little deeper at Mr. Morton, you know what I'm saying? Mr. Morton, you know what I'm saying? Last year had an 11.3% swinging strike rate, 25.4% K rate. All this stuff looks good. Struggled a little bit more to lefties in terms of distance, right? His WOBA was significantly higher. His walk rate was higher, but his strikeout rate was actually higher too. His hard contact rate significantly higher to lefties last year. Significantly. So these are all things we want to consider. We can take a look at the Phillies' projected lineup and see how many lefties that they plan on throwing. Their lineup is already out. They only got 3 lefties: Harper, Didi Gregorius, Adam Haseley, whatever the fuck you want to call him. So yeah, I think Morton's highly in play at these prices. I think he's priced a little too low. And our projections reflect some of these different situations, but even so, even though I think the projection that we have is a little low, he's still projecting as one of the better point per dollar options. So I definitely think Morton will gain traction, will gain some ownership, attention because of his pricing. On FanDuel, I can see him being the most popular pay down by far. And on DraftKings, I think he'll be a very popular SP2. I think that people will roster him in cash and they'll roster him in tournaments. If we look at, I mean, he's not, at the moment, I'm looking at certain ownership projections and he's not projecting that high, which is kind of weird. Maybe it's because of his first game. I don't know. All right, realistically, it's probably because it's cores, right? There's no cores on the slate. So people maybe not feel like they have to spend up massively, I guess. I guess. D Millie, what's up, man? See you in the YouTube chat. New Course Field. What you talking about? What are you referencing, New Course Field? And let's go. I agree. Let's fucking go. Yeah. But yeah, so I think Morton, if he's gonna be lower owned like that, I mean, I'll take some shots. Shit. Manaya. Not terrible numbers. 4.5 ERA doesn't look all that great in comparison to the others, but a 3.77 xFIP is respectable. 4.01 Sierra. Nyeh. A lot of ground balls. That was good. Massive hard contact. That's not great, right? And he's playing Houston, who last year didn't have as much power. You could argue that it was because they weren't cheating, whatever you want to do. But generally speaking, I don't like to attack Houston. And the main reason is for this 19.7% K rate they're showing. They're just a really tough team to fucking strike out. That's just the truth. So I'm not that into them. Manaya. I think that I'd rather take the Houston bats, especially this game being in Houston as opposed to Oakland. If this was in Oakland, I'd give him a little bit more of a shot. I better confirm this info, right? Yeah, the game is in Houston. So, yeah, I actually think that Bregman and Gurriel, Correa, Jordan Alvarez is batting forward, lefty-lefty. I don't give a flying you-know-what, if you will. I like Houston. I think the Houston offense, I I mean, so far going through this list, they're the first ones that I've genuinely liked that I've seen. Does it mean that one of these offenses against these more elite pitchers we talked about or better pitchers we talked about aren't going to go off? But needless to say, I like the Houston offense more than I like Manaea. Tyler Mahle, this guy's interesting. So we have a 4.59 xFIP, not great, right? A 3.59 ERA, that looked good, but the xFIP and Sierra are what we weight a little bit more, right? And if you look at his batting average balls in play last year, 255, it'll show you that it kind of matches, right? That number is really low, telling us that he also got a little lucky. And just like we saw with Plesac, a 224 BABIP, 2.28 ERA, but his xFIP is really 350. Now 350 is good, right? 3.5, that's still good. Mahle goes from a 359 ERA to a 4.59 xFIP. That's not good. You know what I mean? Sierra 4.07, that is bad. 29.9% K rate, that's good. We like that. 50% fly ball rate. Still gives up a shit ton of fly balls. Now, he is in a park that is, in my opinion, roof dependent. I think that the Arizona park, when the roof is closed, is a better pitching park, and we have it ranked 6 according to our new metrics. And the metrics that we're using don't factor in roof open or closed. That is looking at the dimensions of the park and generally how it plays. Most of the time, the roof is closed because it gets hot as balls in Arizona. And they did things. They added the humidor. They added some things to turn it into a more pitcher-friendly park. But if that roof is open, all bets are kind of off. And the park can only do so much to protect you, right? Let me just fix this shit right here. It's driving me crazy. There we go. That's all I wanted to do. That's it. Dasi. Okay. We'll stick with Mr. Mahle here. So, massive fly ball guy. We look for home runs. We like home runs. He's playing an Arizona offense that didn't do all that great last year, right? They didn't. They didn't do all that great last year. Just being real. Just being real. Let's see what else we got here. Let's take a look at his splits. So he gave up more fly balls to lefties, harder contact to lefties. It all makes sense. There's a lot of lefties. Look at his strikeout rate. So 24.8% to lefties is still not bad. It was 35% to righties. So a lot of that strikeout, a lot of that 29.9% strikeout rate is driven up by his numbers to righties. The issue with that today is there should be a lot of lefties in here. Right, we're looking at now. We only have a projected lineup out, but we're looking at potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lefties, assuming they do play Josh Rojas, Peralta, Asdrubal, Eduardo Escobar, Pavin Smith. These are all left-handed hitters, so I think Arizona's in play. I really do, and you can argue the Coors effect. Our boy Patio Joe always talks about the Coors effect, where teams first came out of Coors, they kind of slump a little bit. It's a possibility. You know what I'm saying? It's a possibility. Is it likely? I don't know. Either way, I think that Arizona's offense is in play, and I lean towards them over Mahle unless, and there is an unless. If we see for some reason, and sometimes teams will do this, and not so much early in the season, but when we get in the middle of the season, towards the end of the season, teams will just kind of forget the stats and just say, I got to get guys rest, I got to get guys at bats, or they want to try guys situationally. So unless we see that they're not throwing any lefties, if they roll out here with like an all right-handed lineup or some shit like that, then that'll obviously just kind of change our mind. You know what I mean? Andrew Heaney, this guy will leave you scratching your fucking head, right? He's playing Toronto. Now, before we get too far into it, Toronto, the question is, where are they playing, right? So from my understanding is the plan is for the first 20-something home games or some shit like that, they're going to be in their spring training park, TD Ballpark, in Dunedin, Florida. But I think at some point, they are supposed to go to Buffalo. That's my understanding. Now, let me take a quick peek at these stats right quick, because I want to make sure that So these are the numbers I believe. This ballpark ranking is actually for what this park is rated as, right? And from what I see, it looks like it's fairly neutral. So I don't know why it's ranking so low. They might be picking up the old park. That's a possibility. Let me just check real quick. Park factors. I got too many sheets these days, man. But that's what baseball does to you. It's true. What baseball does to you. Anyway, so from what I see, this park should be fairly hitter friendly, right? This is not a regular Major League park, and we've seen a lot of that with some of these Toronto games. So keep that in mind for Heaney as we go through his stats. 4.45 ERA, 4.15 xFIP. 4.08 Sierra. So the numbers aren't that different. The strikeout rate 25%. We know he's capable of that. BABIP was okay. Gives up a lot of fly balls. 39% is pretty high for fly balls because remember, when you're looking at a fly ball, ground ball, one stat you don't see is the line drives. Those are the three options. So when you see a number that high for fly balls, that's a lot of freaking fly balls. Hard contact rate, 36.7. Let's analyze Heaney a little bit more because Heaney is one of those polarizing players. He does have strikeout upside. He could post big numbers. He has a 12.4% swinging strike rate. And this Toronto projected lineup last year was very strikeout heavy to lefties. I know if you look at the overall number, it showed 22.4% last year, but against lefties for this projected lineup, the numbers were massive. Like we're talking about a team ISO of 264 against lefties and a WOBA of 353, but a K rate of 27.4. So which Heaney do we get? That, my friends, is the question. Could we see potentially what kind of form he's in? He looked to be in really good form earlier this in his first start earlier. Right, but I mean, could we really go off that? Absolutely fucking not. So, one of the more polarizing spots. The way I handle this shit, I'm somebody who plays MLB mass multi-entry, meaning I play at least 150 teams in whatever contest, or at least one contest. So I'm gonna have a little bit of both, maybe like 20% or so on DraftKings of Heaney because I do like other pitchers more, so I don't want to go too heavy. But also maybe like 20% Toronto stacks because I really believe it can go one way or the other. And you can call it a cop out if you want to, but if you're playing multiple teams, this is why, right? I'm explaining to you why he is one of the more polarizing spots, right? This could really go either way. Toronto numbers last year against lefties were massive. ISO Wobas, we talked about that, but their strikeout rates were too. Heaney had a 12.4% swinging strike rate last year. Some players have that kind of swinging strike rate, and their strikeout rate is closer to 30%. So that's kind of where I'm at. I do lean towards Toronto, the bats, to be honest. I lean that way, but we'll have to see. And again, these numbers that you see, 329 WOBA, 186 ISO, those are not splits, right? There's nothing to do with splits. So that's just based off of overall, right? This kid we don't know much about. Taylor Widener. That's an interesting name, isn't it? Let's take a look at what he did. I know he had a pretty decent outing. Against the Padres too, man. He went 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 5 Ks. Got the quality start and the win. Ended up being a pretty good little pitcher. Now he's AK this time around on FanDuel. Looks like he's only 6,500 on DraftKings, so that's kind of a big, difference in price. That's kind of a big price discrepancy there. We'll take a look. I know we don't have a ton with him. We don't have a ton to work with him, so we'll take a look. So last season, for example, he had 39 plate appearances against lefties, 49 against righties, and he didn't look great last year. His xFIP was 5.98. We have it on from now. I'm reading the numbers from like Roto Grinders or something. We had it as 5.65 from FanGraphs, so I'll go with the FanGraphs number. Thank you very much. A Sierra 4.65 is not great. He did have some strikeout stuff, but again, if you look at his batting average balls in play, 196. If he had a larger sample, I think we would have seen some of these other numbers come out a little more. A massive fly ball guy, almost a 50% fly ball rate, second highest on the slate outside of Malley. And the hard contact rate was pretty fucking high, right? 37.3. Looks like he actually gave up more hard contact to righties last year, but it was still high to both, 40 and 46, whatever it is. Let me see here. Yeah. So we've got a team WOBA of 312, 191 ISO. Let's highlight this damn dude. 25% K rate last year for the Reds. If we look at the Reds lineup last year against righties, they actually did really well against righties. Team ISO collectively 244, team WOBA 339. So Winker had a really good season last year, 302 ISO. Castellanos 259 ISO. Votto 238. Suarez 248. Moustakas 270. The park would have been better in Great America Small Park, right, for hitting. But I think this game in general, we already talked about the D-backs bats. I think the Reds bats are just as in play. He did do really well against the Padres, right? Which is baseball. There's variance. But even with those numbers, even doing well in that game, his xFIP is still sitting at 5.36. So I'm a little nervous. And the Reds have kind of started off hot, right? So I think this game in general is one of the better looking offensive games, especially if they open up that roof. And they very well may. We'll have to see. I wonder, matter of fact, I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to check it, man. You can check on their website usually. Let's see if that shit's up to date. Friday, April 9th, the roof is open, baby. So, yeah, this is where we're coming for bats. In tournaments, we're stacking up both sides of this shit. I think. That's what I think. That's what I want to do. Yeah. Another good guy to attack, Julio Teheran. See, we're getting good here. It just so happens, this list is in DraftKings pricing order, just so you know. I didn't make this list in order, but a lot of times it works out that way, right? Once in a while, there'll be a cheap pitcher that you're like, nah, fuck that, I'm playing him. But usually on a lot of slates, if the pitcher's cheap, you'd like to think it's because that pitcher's not that great. Anyway, Julio Teheran, let's talk about you, my friend. I don't think he had a big sample last year either. I'm surprised he found a job, but, yeah, last year, 2020, 77 plate appearances to lefties, 59 to righties, right? 6.07 xFIP. He had a 10.05 ERA last year, a 6.35 xFIP, a 5.99 SIERA. Not good. His strikeout rate was way down. Not good, right? And his batting average balls in play, you can't even say he was unlucky because it was leaning towards the other direction. Now, his hard contact rate wasn't terrible. He is a player that has always had really strong splits. He's a lot better against righties than he is against lefties. Just to give you some of the differentials, WOBA, 330 to righties, 438 to lefties. 113 to righties, which is actually really good. 477 to lefties, just terrible. His average exit velocity, 84.7 to righties, pretty good. 91.8 to lefties, not good. Average hit distance, 160.3 to righties, 212.5 to lefties. Even the strikeout rate, what's that, 16.9 to righties, 11.7 to lefties. Neither number is good, let's be real. But the hard contact rates are pretty massive, and the fly ball rates give up a lot more, and he gave up a lot of line drive to righties. His ground ball rates sucked either way. Hard contact rates, 39.5% to righties, 51.7 to lefties. And this is something over his career, maybe not this extreme, the numbers, but he's always struggled to lefties. That's just always been his thing. And he's going to see a lot of lefties, man. He's playing Cleveland today. At Cleveland. So we're talking about their lineup is actually out. We've got Cesar Hernandez, J-Ram, Eddie Rosario, Josh Naylor, Jake Bowers, and they got Jimenez. So they've got 3 right-handed hitters. The other 6 are left-handed. This should be a tough spot for him. The Indians' offense looks great. It really does. It looks great. That's it. That's it. It looks like we have a pitching change. Give me a second to update this right quick. Because initially we saw Zuch was the guy pitching for Toronto, but I'm seeing now that it's going to be Phelps. So I'm going to make that adjustment right quick. Let me just hold up. FanDuel salaries. Let's get this done now. Zoosh. Get rid of that on you. Phelps. Should work seamlessly. Better work seamlessly or I'll be pissed. I just gotta see. I think it's O. It is O. It's O. I'm talking to myself, not you guys. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. Some of you guys are like, what the fuck is he talking about? Yeah, I get it. We'll see if that updates. I mean, it should update at some point. We'll see if it updates on time. These sheets are all linked up, so we should get the goods, but I don't know. I'll have to look on that. Yeah, okay, so it's happening. They got rid of Zuch. Now they got to give us Phelps. Boom! Just like that. It came through. All right, so let's get into Ari Hanna. So this is a guy that I didn't have any stats. It could be a name correction issue. I literally just made this sheet today because I was excited about trying to revamp the YouTube channel and have these breakdowns with you guys. I was a little excited, so maybe I got a little overzealous. It's possible. No, okay, we just don't have any stats in this dude, right? Yeah, we just got nothing. He's only pitched. He didn't pitch last year. So what do we know about him? Nothing. Let me see if I can look him up. Let's look at FanGraphs and see if we can get any data on this guy. Now, again, this is using last year's data. So we don't got it. All right, we got nothing. We got nothing on this dude. We don't know much about him. What we do know is he started one game and he didn't look so great. Let's see if I can get specifics on that game. A little game log action or something. So, played Kansas City. He played. 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, only 1 strikeout against Kansas City. He is now playing the Slam Diego Padres, who, as you can look over to the matchup column here, 341 WOBA, 209 ISO last year in general, only a 21.5% K rate. This looks like a phenomenal spot for the Padres. They should be popular. I would think they would be. If this roof is open, forget about it. I mean, it's just fucked. But yeah, so some of the top offenses here, we're getting into it now, right? It's going to be San Diego, Cleveland, the Reds, the Angels, who we'll talk about in a second. I think Houston is a wild card team. They don't look as good as some of these other teams now that we look at it, but they still have plenty of merit. And I'm missing one fucking team. Potentially Toronto, right? Because Heaney's more of a wild card. So potentially Toronto. I lean towards Toronto. A lot of good bats. And the cutoff for me for the pitching, I don't see myself like Plesac, McCullers, Wheeler, Musgrove, Morton. I don't see myself really mixing too much. I said I may have some Heaney just because I plan on having Toronto stacks, but I may not even need him, to be honest. David Phelps, we'll get to you last, my friend. Oh, also, Texas last year had a horrible bullpen. We'll see. We don't have the sample this year, but last year they had a horrible bullpen. Keep that in mind. Slam Diego, baby. Let's go. Back to the Toronto game. Let's look at this guy. So, yeah, we initially thought it was Zooch. It was not Zooch. So, let me update this shit right here. Let's see. It's not Zooch. It's Phelps. Nah, man, you keep trying to give me Zoops. I'm trying to tell you it's Phelps, man. Phelps. Actually, Phelps had really good numbers last year. Damn. I believe he was a reliever, right? 45 plate appearances to lefties, 40 to righties. He had a... Wow. So ERA was 6.53, xFIP was 2.64. That's really good. Strikeout rate was really good. Damn. But again, he did pitch out of the bullpen, so it's a little puzzling that his ERA was so damn high when his xFIP and everything else was so low. We don't have enough information to really dig in. Now, what's interesting to me is he did seem to have some strong reverse splits. A 408 WOBA to righties, 351 ISO to lefties, a 272 and a 214. He struck out more lefties, like significantly more lefties, 46.7% opposed to 25%. Also had a much higher ground ball rate to lefties, 57.1% ground ball rate. Why is that? Let's take a look. So he does throw his sinker more to lefties, from what I see. He throws more of his cutter, less of his four-seam fastball. So he likes to throw more movement to the lefties. He throws more of his cutter. He does throw a sinker a lot more, and he throws a curveball. This is an interesting spot, in my opinion. The question is he's an opener. That's right. He's just going to open. So we get one inning out of this guy. So the question comes down to Toronto's bullpen. Are we going to see Zooch come in afterwards? Zooch, on paper, is not great. But against the Yankees, he was able to shut them down somehow. I think we take some shots with the Angels. I think we add them to the list. And primarily, to be honest, number one is partially because of the park. And number two, because this game has a pretty high total. We're talking about Angels currently implied for 5.5 runs, Toronto 5.1. So in general, we've got a pretty high total that we're working with here. So I think we add the Angels to that list. So listen, throwing the stacks at you, doing it dirty style. That's how we're going to do it. Like I said, I play a lot of teams. That's how I roll. That's what I plan on doing. I think we have a lot of different options to work with, both on the bats and the arms. I kind of like this slate. Like, you like the slate more as you dig into it. That's how I feel about this one. The more you dig into it, the more you start to like it. You know what I mean? Yeah, Zeus pitching also. Tony, I see you, bro. Good to see you, Tony, man. Good to see you, man. MG says, D-Bill, you doing your football drinking routine every day now? Toronto's tiny park for this year. Don't make me MME tonight. Yeah, so Toronto, I know for a fact Buffalo was a really good hitting park last year. And from what I understand, this other park is as well. Until Toronto lets them, and until Canada, I know it's Canada, but I like to call it Canada, decides to let the Americans, sloppy Americans back in, this is what we're dealing with. Toronto's going to have massive hitting parks. And it's going to skew their personal numbers a little bit. So we'll have to look to take advantage of that. But yeah, this game is in a small park. That's probably why, like Millie said, this game has a massive total. Right? New Coors Field. That's what she was talking about. I get it, Millie. I get it. Oh, shit. So yeah, just based off the park alone, we're going to want some of that, right? Anyway, Nation, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you guys. My article will be coming out shortly. We got NBA coverage at WiseTake.com today. We'll be doing this Monday through Friday in place of our traditional Wise stream. Do something a little different. Get people on YouTube involved. Break down these pictures. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. And I'm going to try to do them a little earlier. So I did this one late because I had to make the sheet, make the graphics, all this shit. I'm going to try to do this show in the mornings. Maybe I move it to the night before if the date is available, but I'll probably try to do them in the mornings at some point, like late morning, because let's be real. I got a baby, so I sleep when she sleeps, and I got to wake up. You know what I mean? I'm tired in the morning, like a motherfucker. So I appreciate y'all. Hit the like button. Share the show. Means a lot. Help us make this channel grow. Let's make the WiseTake Nation do thy dirty again. That's what we say here. So for myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.